Plastic News on the march. Since the last great battle against the Tan forces, our boys abroad have enjoyed nearly 2 years of peacetime. But that peace was shattered yesterday when the Tan launched an unprovoked attack on Green troops stationed on our northern borders. The battle spread to the air and to the sea, including our new submarine front. The Tan apparently have not been able to separate themselves from their weapons, which is all the same to our boys. They're more than happy to lend a hand. Our boys are rested, well-trained, and more than ready to put an end to the Tan aggression once and for all.
Army Men as a series is almost always a bit rough around the edges. That was certainly true with the first game in the series, and it was certainly true with the first game on the PlayStation. And it's still true for the second game in the Army Men World War sub-series, Land, Sea, Air. If you've played Army Men World War, then you basically know what to expect, as this game is largely more of the same. The main difference is the difficulty. This game is genuinely probably the most brutally difficult game in the entire series. Visually, Land, Sea, Air is indistinguishable from World War, and that's not entirely a bad thing. It doesn't look great, even by PlayStation standards, but I do think there's a certain charm in the budget vibe the Army Men games have. For the most part, this is more of an expansion or a continuation of Army Men World War than anything else. You fight through 5 operations with 3 missions each, and as the title suggests, the biggest difference between World War and Land, Sea, Air is a larger focus on vehicle missions here. One mission, you're manning the guns on a bomber, fighting off enemy fighters on your way to drop bombs on a Tan target. In another mission, you man the guns on a tank that rolls through a bombed-out city on rails and have to eliminate anti-tank crews before they destroy your vehicle. Those missions are similar to the train mission in the first Army Men World War game on PlayStation, but instead of a fun little diversion from the norm, these missions are really where things start to go downhill. The beginning of the game feels tough but fair. Nothing you haven't seen in other Army Men games. Once you reach that godforsaken bomber mission, though, it goes full Dark Souls. The bomber mission nearly had me involuntarily committed, driving me crazy. It sounds easy enough. Shoot down enemy fighters as they approach, aiming wherever your pilot tells you to. 11 o'clock, 4 o'clock, etc. But the game makes this unreasonably difficult. It requires absolute perfection, to a degree only obtainable by repeating the level dozens of times, and just memorizing where planes appear when. Even if you shoot down every plane before it gets to you, something I was able to do after a couple of tries, you'll still die before the end of this unnecessarily long mission simply by the accumulation of small bits of damage. The only way to avoid that is to be shooting at the planes before they even spawn, hence the need for memorization. It's not just the vehicle levels that are brutal either. The whole game is unusually tough. The general rule of thumb in war games is that the faster a weapon's rate of fire, the lower its accuracy. 3DO apparently forgot about that here. Tan soldiers can pretty much snipe you from the maximum draw distance with a machine gun. If you've ever played Battlefield 2042 against bots, think about the AI sniping you across the map with a PKP in that game. It's the same concept, except you're plastic and you're playing in 240p instead of 4K. That's a shame, too, because the controls are, for Army Men on PlayStation, pretty decent, at least compared to Army Men 3D. The level variety, too, with the array of different vehicle-based missions, really mixes up the experience in a way that Army Men 3D didn't, and that Army Men World War didn't do often enough. The game would be a ton of fun to play if it weren't so frustratingly difficult. Maybe in the late 90s and early 2000s, when I was a kid, I would have been more tolerant of this degree of difficulty, since not nearly as many games were releasing then, and we were still in the days where most games were padded with high difficulty to lengthen the game artificially. But in 2024, at age 32 with a full-time job, I just do not have the patience for that. I mean, I clearly pushed through the game for the sake of my review, but I only managed that because my superpowers are pig-headed stubbornness and autism. Army Men World War Land, Sea, Air is, at its core, a pretty decent game. It's not an amazing game. this is Army Men we're talking about, but at its core, it's really not bad, and I feel compelled to have my score reflect that. Unfortunately, that core is buried beneath an AI endowed with godlike aim and omniscience, and a degree of difficulty that I'm pretty sure violates some part of the Geneva Conventions. If someone can make a ROM hack that just tweaks the difficulty, maybe double the amount of health you have, or halve the amount of damage enemy bullets do, that would be a dope game. As it is, though, it's tragically more frustrating than it is fun. And that's a real bummer, since the gameplay is not what holds it down like the first Army Men game or some of the Gold Star Software era games. If you're a big fan of Army Men or a big PlayStation enthusiast, this is a neat system exclusive to try out. But for anyone, steer clear if you value your sanity and time. My rating for Army Men World War Land, Sea, Air on the PlayStation is a C.